Hi guys, I just watched a movie, and what movie did I watch? Phantom Planet. Ah! I've been wanting to see this movie for so long, and I finally did. Oh my goodness. I'm just floored. I really did like this movie. Now, if you have never heard of this movie before, never seen this movie before, it is not very campy. We're talking about 1961 sci-fi. So a lot of people would think, oh, it's going to be campy. I thought it was going to be campy. It isn't. It is low budget, right? So we're not getting incredible special effects. In fact, special effects for science fiction films wouldn't really come into play until about 1968 with 2001: A Space Odyssey. That was like really a film to take seriously. Otherwise than that, people were just really having a lot of fun with science fiction. But this particular film, it does feel like there was a lot of effort put into making it look as real as they could. The tone is very serious, actually, but I think there was a few areas in which I thought maybe they could have upped the ante on. It's just my opinion. However, it has a really good story, a few surprises, and a few areas in which I've noticed that a few filmmakers have used, or at least one in particular, one big film that everybody knows that has used this film as a model for some iconic moment. We're going to get into it right now. The Phantom Planet is a 1961 independently made American black and white science fiction film. I'm getting this from Wikipedia. I hope you guys are okay with that. It is just for these quick reviews. This is not my research reviews like I normally do. This is just a quick, basic first reaction to this film. And it was produced by Fred Gebhardt and directed by William Marshall. This film was released in the US by the American International Pictures. And I have covered this company before. They worked a lot with Roger Corman and Alex Gordon and Lou Russoff. Just a lot of B movies, the fun ones that really entertained that generation, people from the 50s and the 60s. So it was really, really important during that time for these entertainment pieces to be out there. This was entertainment for people and wanted something to do on the weekends. Let's go see a movie. And in a low budget movie were just sometimes what the doctor ordered. So the time period for this film is 1980, and the United States Air Force Space Exploration Wing has bases on the moon. It has a planned mission to Mars. And it opens with a very interesting monologue about humans in space, in their sense of exploration. In many ways, this movie actually seems more like an episode of Star Trek. If you go through all of the events that happen on it, almost feels like an episode of Star Trek, the TV series, the original one back in the 60s. So it has that flavor, and this came before Star Trek. On the Lunar Base 1, it's very interesting because we're still waiting for that lunar base to happen. But in this story, and we achieved it in 1980. How awesome! Only 19 years after this movie was made. So the moon base, Lunar Base 1, is where the headquarters are for sending out ships to go to other worlds and explore the galaxy. The first event is the crew Pegasus, which is a rocket ship in space, being pulled into a collision course with an asteroid that has some strange kind of gravity field. They indeed hit the asteroid and they blow up. The people back on Lunar Base 1 is just they're trying to figure out what's going on. It's high priority. And so they send their best guy to do this job, and that is Captain Frank Chapman, and he's actually scheduled to go to the Mars mission, and he has to put that on hold to take care of this problem. Now, before we go any further, I wanted to take a look at this moon base. look at the pictures of the moon here. We're going to be looking at the moon base here. Look at that moon base. Ooh, it's a little rough. It's a little rough. I was expecting a little bit more from the moon base, but it doesn't look too bad. Not too bad. And these are the operatives on the moon base, secretaries for the colonel, and so on and so forth. So it just lets you know that it's an international base and not just for the United States. So that's really cool. This is a look at the ship, which is awesome. When you look at the ship in black and white color, it was done in black and white, but it also has a color version as well. The colors that it was meant to be were really bright colors. So, and I love the ship. I was like, oh my goodness, this is so cool. So it looks a lot like mine. And yes, so back to our hero in the story, Frank Chapman. He is immediately likable. He's cracking jokes and being very personable. Says a little tagline, I'll take a crack at anything once. So it's like he's got sort of an adventurous spirit, and he's a real, stand up, take charge kind of guy. He reminds me a lot of Flash Gordon. Very, very interesting that I would think that, because the movie that I was telling you about that has a few moments in the film in which they do almost a direct copy of this film. It is often compared to and has used Flash Gordon as an inspiration, and you can see it all through that movie. Now, when we get to it, I'll show you. His co-pilot is a gentleman by the name of McConan. He's a very good guy. Like even Chapman says out loud, "Oh, he's a good guy," and he really mentions how much he admires the beauty of space and their job. He really likes and he's really good at what he does too. So it's wonderful. He's looking out into space and having very deep thought. And we're like, wow, immediately like this guy too. Just so we could get a look at the inside of the ship, just from a technical point of view. Now, whether these things are accurate to exactly how it would look like inside of a spaceship, I'm not sure, but we can imagine that this looked pretty good. I really was surprised by all of the technical detail that they put into making that cockpit look like it was an actual working cockpit. So yes, this is really wonderful. I love that. And the actors are just, flipping the buttons and the switches, and just, they're in a character, and it's wonderful. I love this. Don't you just want to reach into the photo and just press some of those buttons? I do. I guess I'm a geek for these kinds of things. Now, they are experiencing the same thing that Pegasus experienced just before they crashed. A strange gravity pull, and then there's these random asteroids that are coming towards them, and they are dodging those asteroids, but also there is a gravity pull towards this larger asteroid that is going to be a collision course. But one of these smaller asteroids injures the ship, and so they have to go outside and fix the problem. And so, here they are, like, fixing the problem, but Captain Chapman gets hit by one of these wild rays. We're not even sure where they came from. McConan is such a hero, and so, he's very good at his job, as I said before. He makes sure that the captain gets inside safely. But unfortunately, he is also hit by a ray and rendered disabled at this point, and to the point that he floats off into space. And that's pretty much the end of the character. As a critique, I would say it would be then nice to develop more feelings for McConan. I liked him, and I didn't want to see him go so quickly. But for the sake of time, I'll allow it. I will allow it. But it was sort of like, no, not so soon. We just met you. So that was so sad that happened. When Captain Chapman wakes up, he finds himself inside of the rocket ship, and he manages to land the rocket. And that is pretty much all that he can do. When he gets out of the rocket ship, he just suddenly feels very weak. and he faints. Okay, and when he faints, there are these little teeny tiny people that are on this asteroid. They actually live there and have a complete society there. And he's sort of like, what is happening here? What he's completely out of it though because he is just getting used to the air there. He falls, and when he falls, it opens his helmet in which he is breathing the air on this asteroid. And this by breathing the air, it makes him shrink down to the size of these little people. And I thought that was very interesting. I was like, oh, that's cool. Is it probable? Most likely not. But this is the point in which science meets fantasy. And I love it. I love it. I love it. Well, as soon as he gets out of there, they arrest him very quickly and they put him on trial. They put him on trial because they said that he hurt somebody. I thought that the punishment was going to be death, but they said that the punishment is for him to stay for the rest of his life, to become a citizen and never leave. They also send his rocket off into space, in which it can be collected by one of the other people from Earth. It's very interesting because now he's stranded on this planet and has no way to go home, and he's out of sorts. As soon as he gets there, there is a guy that's standing right in the middle here, does not like the idea of this man showing up. So the man's name is Heron, and he actually has a crush on the leader's daughter. Now the leader has said to Captain Chapman that he can marry one of two women. And one of them is Liara, who is the leader's daughter, and is also the person that Heron is in love with. But Liara, as soon as she sees Chapman, she's like, wow, she really likes him. And then there is also Zetha, who also likes the leader. His name is Sesam. You know, the leader is a very nice guy. He's actually really level headed. He goes by the rules of his world, but at the same time, he's not cruel or anything or excessively mean or anything. He explains a whole lot to this guy who just got to the planet. He's not rude or anything. It's actually kind of interesting how much he's not really in any kind of danger, right? So they're not really like threatening him or trying to get him. The only person who's giving him any threatening vibes is Heron. The only reason why Heron is giving him that vibe is because he's in love with Sesam's daughter, Liara. And Liara is sort of a spoiled brat, and she's used to getting what she wants. But always close by near her side is Zetha. And Zetha is a girl who cannot speak, but these two, as soon as these young ladies see Captain Chapman, it is game over, dude. Game over, dude. Game over. They are in love with this guy. He is just like so amazing to them. They're like, it's incredible. But the girl Zetha is very very demure, and she doesn't really go after him like that. She gives him she watches him a lot. She looks a lot, but she doesn't go after him as much as Liara does. Liara is being played by Colleen Gray, incredibly, I must add. Colleen Gray has worked in the business for a very, very long time. And then we have this gorgeous beauty, Dorian Faith. Oh my goodness. This was back in the 60s. Wow, what a knockout. They're both gorgeous, but yeah, she's definitely incredible. There are sparks going on that Chapman can't really figure out. There's something going on there with him and her. He manages to get her away and gets to talk to her to find out if there's anything going on there between them, any sparks or whatever there are. It's sort of like Ariel, like and Prince Eric, like go on and kiss the girl. One of those moments where you're like, that they have a lot of chemistry, the two of them. They like each other a lot. But while Chapman is sort of confessing how he feels, which is he's like, I don't know what these feelings are. He's not really confessing his love. He's just saying there might be something here between us. Heron is listening to this and he is outraged. He's outraged because you cannot have your cake and eat it too. I mean, here we have the girl that he loves falling all over this guy. And then he's also talking to this other girl. Like, he's like, no, 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 you can't do that in my culture. So he approaches him and wages a duel between the two. And it is a challenge to the death. Very, very serious thing here. And so they do a little weird ritualistic challenge in which one has to push the other into a plate on the ground, and that plate will disintegrate you. Well, I love this because this plate comes back around. So they made the setup in this scene for that disintegrating plate. If you notice in the background, there's a combination of this sort of limestone that's got a really cool texture, and you've got sort of rocks in the background. Very nice to show that this world is a mixture of primitive and high technology. What I didn't tell you about this planet is that it is a fully functioning spaceship. They can travel wherever they want. They can control gravity on the planet. They can control the gravitational pull of larger objects. They're just the technology is just insanely far beyond what you would imagine. But in many ways, this culture is very, very primitive. And that's because at one point they had been a highly technological culture and it failed them. So they went back to the primitive ways. Very cool. I love all that. It's so cool. You see, it's very deep. It's much deeper than it. I thought it was going to be. I thought I was like, oh, it's just going to be like a scary monster and just be silly, and it's actually not. It's actually really good. So yeah, they go through this ritualistic challenge, and Chapman wins. He has the unique position that he could actually just throw Heron right onto that slab and kill him instantly. Well, he doesn't. He has a conscience, and that wins Heron over. From that time period on, Heron is pretty much very, very loyal to Chapman. He's earned his trust and his loyalty. Very nice. I mean, that's pretty cool. This is a scene in which Liara is pledging her love to Chapman, and Chapman is like, no, you don't love me. You knew that this challenge was going to happen, and you just waited. Whoever won, you were going to be going to. And so I was like, wow, they actually put this in this story. This selfish person who is like, I'm just, biding my time until the guy who's the strongest shows himself, reveals himself through the challenge, and then I'll pick that one. Even though we all knew that she liked him anyway from the beginning, but he doesn't really feel those feelings for her. He feels them for Zeta. So this is very interesting. We've got a three-way love triangle here. And well, it doesn't seem like Liara is very much fazed by that. She shows him around and tries to orient him into their ways. One of the things she does is she shows a prisoner that is actually on site. It is a Solarite prisoner captured during a previous raid. The Solarite is actually played by Richard Keel. And Richard Keel is the actor. Many people know him as Jaws, who was in two James Bond movies, The Spy Who Loved Me in 1977 and Moonraker in 1979. Very cool. There may be some other cool movies that he's a part of. The Twilight Zone episode, To Serve Man, can't forget him in that. But yes, he plays the Solarite. Can't see him because his face is covered with makeup and prosthetics or a mask. And yes, that's him under this makeup. So yeah, everybody at this point really loves Captain Chapman to the point that the leader, Sassom, says, "Hey, look, when I go, you can rule over this, all of this." It's like, wow, he's giving him his kingdom as well. Wow, that's incredible. He's really impressed a lot of people. Well, the Phantom Planet is now under attack by the Solarites. They're coming in hot now. So at this point in the story, it's pretty late. And I really wish that the Solarites had been introduced a lot earlier. A lot earlier. Like that was, the tensions between the Solarite and the people on this Phantom Planet was something that was a little bit more intense for me. That would be one of my biggest issues with the storyline is that the Solarites suddenly come in at the end, but it's very gratifying because there's a space battle, guys. You thought that there was just one movie that was like the first to ever do a space battle. Well, in 1961, the Phantom Planet had a an epic, I will say epic space battles. And if you listen during that space battle, you can hear sounds that are very familiar to another movie. And in fact, the movie I've been referring to this whole time. It's really shocking and incredible. There's even an area of a complete formation of these of the enemy ships, and it's like, wow, this is what am I looking at here? This is is this familiar at all to you? It's very interesting. The sounds, if you listen, just listen, the sounds is very interesting, and also the way the formation moved. You're like, oh, I see something familiar there. Definitely. We also have this scene in which I thought was very interesting, and I was like, where have I seen this before? Or something that looks a lot like this. Let's see. Ah, ah, yeah. I mean, even the window is the same. Like they didn't even change the shape of the window is like nearly the same. Very interesting. I love seeing this because it supports the concept of movie making being something that is handed down from generation to generation by the next generation copying and emulating what it saw before and or creating something new from those all those different ideas. And we already know so many places in which Star Wars has used inspiration, right? I mean, to the point of like exactly duplicating it. This is another example, and I love it. I love it because just because Star Wars used an idea from another film doesn't make it a bad movie suddenly. It's still a great movie. It's still a great set of movies. I love seeing this because I'm like, oh, so this is the origin of that particular visual. I love seeing origins. And I would love to see what movies and what ideas encouraged this movie. What books were they reading? What stories were they envisioning? Where did they get their inspiration from? I'm fascinated by this, and I love filmmaking because of it. I do, I do, I do. Every time I see something like that, it just makes me like, wow, this is so cool. Now, back to the narrative of the story. They win this battle with the idea that they've beaten all of the Solarites. But during the battle, the Solarite that they had imprisoned was freed somehow. And so that is a Solarite that is roaming the halls of this place. Well, there's our beautiful young maiden, just as helpless as she can be on her bed. And he just shows up and grabs her. And we're not sure what he plans on doing with her, but he grabs her. The two guys have to team up together to destroy this monstrosity. It's 1961 action, right? It's not it's not the kind of stuff we do today. But it was great to see the two characters work together, Heron and Captain Chapman. After this whole thing, Zappa screams. And when she screams, she like unlocks her ability to speak, which is, I don't know if you can agree with that. I don't know if that makes sense, but well, we'll take it. We'll take it. There's also one other interesting thing about this planet. Even though they may be speaking different languages, Chapman may be speaking one language, and the people of this world may be speaking another language. They have something in the air that allows them to understand each other in their respective languages. Very interesting. I thought that was quite cool. Yeah, I wish there was something like that for us on planet Earth, and maybe there might be one day. Maybe there might be. Technology is marching on, and we don't know what will be available in, say, 100 years, maybe even 30 years. You never know. The two of these guys, they make incredible lovey-dovey statements. They're very much now in love, but Chapman really wants to go home. He really wants to go home, and I think there's an opportunity for him to go home, and he takes it. And they pick him up, and he is back. It ends very somber. He goes back to his world and leaves them where they are, but he doesn't even tell them about this world that he discovered. She gives him a rock before he leaves, and I was wondering what it was, if it was a magical rock, if they could speak to each other through it. Like I was hoping there was a reason for her to give him that rock. It's just a memento. This movie has been a subject of the Mystery Science Theater 3000, and that is it's actually part of their home. It's actually part of their Rhino Home Video Collection, Volume 8. And I thought that was pretty cool. This movie is can be comedic in the context if you are looking at an older movie and you're just like, oh, I just want to see an older movie and I really want to make fun of it. I suppose you could, but honestly, if as somebody like me who's like really, really into science fiction, love stories, want to know about these things and want to know why things didn't work and why didn't they work. Well, the big reason why it doesn't connect with people today is the special effects. It's just very basic, very simply done. But I think you can follow along what's going on. When you peel back the story a little bit, it's not the worst story. It's actually pretty good. It's actually has they actually try to explain some of the pseudoscience, if you will. And it's kind of funny and cute to see what that pseudoscience was for filmmakers back in the 60s. So I did enjoy that. And I think what would have been helpful is if they had consulted more people who were in the scientific field to kind of talk about that. But look, the set design in that cockpit is just really incredible. So I do think that even though it does have the comedic value of being different, so far removed from the stuff that we watch today, it could be looked at as funny. But I think if you're a if you're a film lover who loves older films and is interested in diving a little bit deeper, then you're probably gonna enjoy watching this. I also do enjoy looking at all of the old cover art posters. There's so many. There's many more than I could actually show you, but these are a few of them really great. And I love this one. And the one that's closer to me is actually one that's a more modern version. And I always liked that one. I was like, because every time I would see that, I was like, is that like a low budget movie that from like, the 80s? No, it's actually from 1961. So it has a modern feel to it. Yeah, I do love all of that. And that's it, guys. I did have a lot of fun with this one. Again, it's right in my wheelhouse. It's not going to be for everyone. I don't think it's going to be for everyone. Only if you're into, old sci-fi, old gadgety things, old monsters, and they give you a little bit of monsters in this one. It's not like the green slime where they're monsters galore in that movie. They did have a quite a good storyline. I wouldn't mind seeing a remake of this, or a modern version of this. And you don't have to call it Phantom Planet, but you can call it something else. But using the same sort of premise would be just great. And you can see the innovation that it had, that it was able to inspire Star Wars. Like, yeah, of course it did. And it's great. It's wonderful. Oh man, guys, I hope that if you have seen this movie, please let me know what you think of it in the comments. And if you haven't seen the movie that yet, or you're just sort of like, I don't know if I'm going to see this one, let me know why you're hesitating on seeing this one. It is definitely, or if you're planning on seeing it, let me know that too. Without further ado, I bid you adieu, and I'll see you in the next one.